Hello everyone, my name is Angela Matthews, and if you've ever wondered why deeply faithful people sometimes face unrelenting financial struggles, then I invite you to lean in closely. What I'm about to share isn't your everyday story. It's the account of how I literally died on the 14th of August, 2022, for 9 minutes and 12 seconds, and came back with a message straight from Jesus himself. I know that might sound impossible or exaggerated, but I promise you, every word I'm about to say is as real as it gets. I'm still trembling as I recall it, but I've prayed long and hard for the right words to do this testimony justice. My hope is that by the time you finish listening, you'll have a whole new perspective on financial hardships, especially if you've been questioning why your faithfulness hasn't translated into the financial breakthrough you've been desperately seeking. I'm not here to tell you a fairy tale about sudden riches or an easy life. Instead, I'll be sharing the exact revelations I received during those few minutes when I stepped beyond this physical world and into the most indescribable encounter with the divine. Let's start at the beginning. I was 39 years old when this all happened. I worked as a pediatric nurse at a children's hospital here in Minneapolis. Nursing has always been more than just a job for me. It felt like a calling. I grew up in a Christian home where we were taught to put our trust in God, no matter the circumstances. I did my best to live that out, faithfully attending church, reading my Bible, and tithing consistently. Yet, for reasons I couldn't understand, my finances never seemed to stabilize. Ever since my husband abandoned me and our 2 kids a few years ago, money had been tight. Bills stacked up, stress piled on, and I found myself constantly asking, God, I'm being faithful. Why is it always a struggle? It seemed like others were prospering without much effort, while I was drowning in debt despite doing everything I knew to do. On that August day, I'd been feeling a sharp pain in my abdomen for hours during my shift. Typical of many nurses, I tried to shake it off, assuming I'd just pulled a muscle or eaten something bad. But the pain got worse, excruciating in fact. By the time I finally admitted I needed medical attention, it turned out my appendix had ruptured. That quickly led to a severe infection spreading through my body. They rushed me into emergency surgery to remove what was left of my appendix and address the infection. I remember lying on the operating table, looking up at the bright lights. Right before the anesthesia kicked in, I whispered, "Lord, watch over my children." Little did I know that simple prayer would be the doorway to the most life-altering experience I could ever imagine. The next thing I remember was a sensation of being lifted, like I was floating out of my own body. I saw my physical form on the operating table and the frantic medical team trying to save me. Despite the chaos, I felt total peace. There was no pain, no fear, just a gentle sense of being carried away. Then came the light. But calling it light doesn't quite capture it. It was more like the purest form of love, a living presence that instantly made me feel safe and enveloped in warmth. In that presence, I became aware of every moment of my life all at once, like time didn't exist the way it does here. I felt more alive there than I'd ever felt in my entire life. Suddenly, I heard my name, Angela. I turned, or whatever you do in that realm, and found myself in the presence of Jesus Christ. This wasn't the Sunday school image of Jesus you might imagine. He felt simultaneously vast and intimately close, like he knew every thought I'd ever had, yet still loved me more deeply than words can express. I noticed the scars on his hands, glowing with a kind of light that seemed to hold an entire story of redemption. "Angela," he said, "you've been faithful, yet you've questioned why you struggle financially while others prosper. Today, I'm going to show you the real reason, not just for you, but for every one of my chosen ones who wonders the same thing." With that, my surroundings shifted. It was as if I was standing in a place where eternal truths and earthly realities existed together, making things clearer than they ever could be in the physical world. The first thing Jesus showed me was a scene of countless believers on earth. These were sincere Christians, people who prayed, served, and gave. Many were in tears, pleading for God's help with their finances. Then I noticed something hovering above them, like a radiant shield. Jesus explained, "That shield appears to them as financial limitation, but it's actually my protection. If they had the wealth they're begging for before their hearts were ready, it would destroy their souls." He waved his hand, and I saw alternate futures. What would happen if these same believers received sudden wealth? Many of them grew proud and self-reliant, drifting away from prayer and church. Some even abandoned their faith. It was heartbreaking. Jesus looked at me and said, "Some of my dearest children curse the very thing that's protecting them. They don't see that I'm shielding them from stumbling." Jesus then revealed a darker side of the spiritual realm. I saw demonic forces specifically targeting believers who carried powerful callings. They placed obstacles in these believers' paths, particularly in their finances, hoping to discourage them so much that they'd abandon their God-given assignments. "The enemy knows who carries my greatest assignments," Jesus said. "He uses financial lack because it's one of the most effective ways to break someone's spirit and focus." It dawned on me. Every unpaid bill and every financial crisis can actually be proof of a significant spiritual calling on a person's life. The enemy doesn't waste time attacking those who don't pose a threat. Scene after scene played out, showing believers who let finances become their safety net instead of relying on God. I saw how financial hardship often strips away these false securities, compelling people to depend on the Lord in a more real and raw way. "I provided manna daily to the Israelites," Jesus reminded me. "I wasn't incapable of giving them a year's supply. I wanted them to learn daily dependence on me." Many are in a similar wilderness right now. In another vision, I watched how financial limitations shielded believers from toxic relationships and misleading opportunities. Doors that never opened or that slammed shut turned out to be God's way of keeping these people from wandering off course. Sometimes what we think is God saying no is actually God shielding us. I recognized my own life. There were business deals I'd been devastated to miss, but Jesus showed me exactly how those deals would have led me away from my divine purpose. Next, I saw financial struggles acting like a refiner's fire. They exposed hidden motives and tested the depth of a believer's faith. Jesus said, "Many ask for wealth, but if their character isn't ready, that wealth would harm them. I withhold it to refine them first." I was shown believers who remained joyful and gave generously even in the midst of their own lack. They were building what looked like heavenly treasure, something far more valuable and eternal than money. Jesus called them prosperity pioneers, explaining that they'd learned contentment in any circumstance, making them unstoppable in the spiritual realm. One of the most gripping revelations was about generational curses, patterns of poverty, mismanagement, or addictions passed down through families. Jesus showed me entire lineages, including my own. I saw my grandparents and parents, recognizing the patterns that I was now battling to break. Jesus said, "I place certain chosen ones in specific families to break these generational chains. The enemy fights them so hard because once those chains are broken, they're broken forever." Then I watched as God orchestrated the perfect timing for financial breakthroughs. It was like seeing a grand chessboard where every move affected multiple lives. If a blessing arrived too early, it could derail God's greater plan. Jesus showed me scenarios where believers forced financial blessings through loans or dishonest deals. Those quick fixes led to deeper bondage, not freedom. "My timing is flawless," Jesus said. "I consider not just your immediate need, but your entire destiny and the destinies of others connected to you." Jesus underscored how easy it is for people to forget God once they feel financially secure. I saw believers who had once prayed fervently but turned lukewarm when their bank accounts were full. "Dependence keeps you close to me," he said. "I'd rather you walk through financial challenges than lose sight of your eternal purpose." One of the most surprising revelations was the connection between financial hardship and spiritual authority. Every time someone overcame a financial test by trusting God, it was like spiritual power was being deposited into their lives. "You look at what you lack," Jesus told me, "but I see the authority you're gaining. That authority will be crucial for your next assignments." I saw how some believers, after receiving financial abundance too soon, relocated or changed their entire lifestyles, only to miss the exact place or ministry where God needed them to be. In contrast, those who remained faithful in their struggles ended up exactly where God intended, armed with both spiritual maturity and a deeper understanding of God's nature. Eventually, Jesus took me to a final revelation: how financial struggles serve as a crucible for spiritual refinement. I saw people walking through financial storms, yet clinging to God with unwavering faith. In the spiritual realm, these trials were like a furnace, melting away pride and self-reliance, forging souls of extraordinary spiritual purity and strength. Before sending me back, Jesus placed his hands on my shoulders and said, "Angela, share these truths. My children suffer because they don't understand the purpose behind their financial trials. Tell them I haven't forgotten them. Their breakthrough will come exactly when it needs to." In the next instant, I felt myself pulled back toward my physical body. The hospital monitors were beeping wildly, and my medical team looked stunned. According to the records, I had been clinically dead for 9 minutes and 12 seconds. They feared I might have brain damage, but I woke up speaking clearly and feeling an indescribable peace. Ever since that day, my financial situation hasn't magically reversed. But something far more valuable changed: my perspective. I no longer see my financial battles as punishment or God's indifference. Instead, I understand them as stepping stones, opportunities for protection, spiritual growth, and alignment with God's perfect timing.